6 days, that's how far away we are from the special election primary in Prince George's County. On the ballot is the race for county executive, the highest ranking elected official in the county. 8 Democrats, 3 Republicans want the job, and it's an office once held by Angela Alsobrooks, who is now in the U.S. Senate. We've invited all the candidates to join us live in studio so we can talk about the issues that really impact you at home. Today we are joined by Democratic candidate Albert Slocum. He has a background in business, HR development, and management, and also served on the Prince George's County Association of Realtors Legislative Committee. Mr. Slocum, so good to have you here in studio. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
Tell me right out the gate, why do you want this job?
It's pretty clear. The people need change. And, if you go to my website, Fresh Start, fresh results, fresh face. I've been an advocate all my life. Started off at the age of 13, originally from Bridgeport, Connecticut. Grew up amongst 10 of us, siblings, brothers and sisters, large family. Grew up in the public school system, so I understand firsthand what that looks like. And, the people need to have someone with the leadership that knows how to get things done. From a county executive perspective, my background, my education, my experience, and exposure to life experiences will be instrumental for this role.
I wanted to ask you, because you touched on this just briefly. You are the youngest of 10 children. Do I have that right?
Yes.
Okay, and you've been in PG County for 20 plus years.
25 years.
25 years. Being the youngest of 10 children, how does that prepare you potentially for a job like county executive?
Well, it's like running a business. You're in a household and everyone's older than you, so they're, putting a lot of things into play as far as their skills, their talents, abilities, skills, and knowledge. And you're the youngest, so you kind of pick up from where they left off at, and you're learning. Now, things weren't really easy as far as, learning things from that angle there. I had to really work hard, and I'm a hard worker, and I've always have been.
Let's talk about your first 100 days in office. If you get the job, what do you plan to do?
Cut the budget.
Oh, let's talk about the budget. Let's do it. Okay, talk to me about that.
Well, technically speaking, not literally cut the budget, but more so reallocate.
Why not? Why not cut the budget? Let's start. We got a $170 million deficit.
Right.
Why not?
Eliminate that deficit.
Okay.
First
How?
30 days.
How?
Well, number one is reallocate those funds to where they're optimal. And the agencies, there are 24 agencies. We're not spending our money wisely.
Okay.
So that's number one.
What are some of the problem spots?
Well, looking at the Board of Education budget, for example,
Sure.
right? There aren't any career and college preparation. You're getting just under $3 million out of, $1.7 billion funded from the state and federal sources. And there are several sources that come with that. You have the board sources, then the county sources. So the school budget is getting like $2.9 billion. Where's all that money going?
Right. Well, so they've broken it down. One of the major things I was looking at, so to your point, 62% of the budget goes to education, right? We know it's a big deal in Prince George's County, and there's room for improvement. Personnel and teacher salaries make up 50 to 55%. Would you increase that? I'm just picking one spot here. I mean, there's a couple places we can pick, but that is the largest chunk of that 62% budget. What would you do with that?
Well, there are restricted and unrestricted sources for the budget. And yes, teachers make out around $62,000. Many may argue that they're not making enough because of all the challenges that they're experiencing. And I can concur with that.
Sure.
But I think that there should be some other incentives that are not at the expense of our budget.
Okay.
And reallocating those funds towards areas like educational centers, because the school's not really providing that. And I'll tell you why. Substitute teachers make up a large portion of this budget, only because the teachers that are in the school system are afraid to come to school, or they fear for their lives based on the issues regarding the youth. Now, that's a problem because you have to be in school working with the kids. And if we don't have that budget allocated in other areas, which would redirect their attention and get them back into the school program, as well as having extracurricular activities that fit the way that they're wired, then we're going to have another dilemma.
Well, let me spin off here build on what you're saying a little bit here, because juvenile crime is a big problem in the county, a big concern, from carjackings to car theft. We've seen adult crime go down in many regards, but juvenile crime in many respects has gone up. And I know you have an extensive business background. You've got a business mind. Can you handle crime like this?
We can. There's ICE, U.S. Immigration, Customs Enforcement. Prince George's County is getting hammered away as far as not cooperating with them. So I think that we need to focus on cooperating with ICE to lower the crime rate. I think there's exploitation to connecting the dots to our youth, and they're getting out there.
Okay, I see where you're going. I was going to say, how would you communicate that to voters who quite frankly, might be fearful? We've heard some express some fear over interactions with ICE, what that might look like. How would you communicate effectively with voters in that regard?
Well, ICE, it appears, and I haven't personally had that interaction, but I have to believe from the sources that they are willing to cooperate. And Prince George's County just has been given a little stigma as far as not being able to do that. So as a county executive, I will make sure that those relationships are solid.
Meaning,
and then get to the root cause.
Meaning you'd communicate more? What does that mean? How?
Well, communication, using what we already have in place, but also building those relationships, having a liaison with ICE. So this way here, we're holding people accountable.
Let's talk about, I wanted to continue on the topic of juvenile crime, because we touched on this a little bit, but if you get the job, do you argue for increased investment, in the community programs, or do you think we need a tougher stance on crime in regard to juveniles, or both, some marriage between the two?
Well, the marriage is that we need more public safety personnel. There are those who are in the civilian seats. So rather than hiring new or more than the 200 that has been added to the budget, we can take the civilians and then just kind of put them back on the non-civilian
You're talking about police?
Right, on the police side. And then we have auxiliary police, pretty much like the neighborhood watch. So that will help us because they're our eyes. But more importantly, I think we need educational services for the students. Take, for example, graffiti, right? The behavior behind graffiti, one thing can lead to another, and that can get you in trouble just as a child and then open you up to exploitation. But if we allow them a platform where they're actually able to take that art mindset and put it on a platform to get recognition for their good works instead of tagging buildings and commercial buildings and residential buildings, that would be a good stake in the crime reduction aspect.
I wanted to go back to the police aspect that you just touched on. So let me say this back to you. You were saying we need to reallocate some of the police force to more into civilian roles. Is that civilian outreach with the public? Am I saying that correctly?
Well, the civilians to put them back on the police force because they're already on the payroll.
Right.
And from an insurance standpoint, HRD standpoint, it costs more money to hire new people. I don't think people understand that.
And there's a
millions.
Massive, we got 350 open police jobs at this point. How would you improve recruitment efforts within the police department?
Well, I've actually been to their training, when I managed $1/3 of $1 billion of assets as a part of Prince George's County retirement planning, as well as town of Bladensburg. So I've seen as far as firsthand, what their recruitment looked like. What I would do is kind of make sure that we're hiring those that really want the job, that really want the role and have more experience. And I get it, allowing others the opportunity to get in there and get their feet wet. But, again, attrition is very important from a standpoint of taking civilians back into the non-civilian role. And then also budgeting. The police, they're getting over 20% of the budget, and that's significant.
They are getting roughly 28%, and then when you juxtapose it with the 62% that education is getting, right? Yet we have this juvenile crime dilemma. I mean, there's a lot of different things going on here at play. So are you saying the police needs more of the budget, or they need less of that 28% of the pie?
Well, I'm saying that they don't need more of the budget. I think that we can go from an attrition standpoint and hire people from within, at least until we can get the balance of our budget.
Okay.
We need to do that.
Let's talk about the county. Prince George's County has one of the highest property tax rates in Maryland, right? It's something we've heard, residents talking about, which is, look, we're worried about snow removal. We're worried about trash removal. January had a snowstorm that was rough with people getting plowed out of their residential roads. How would you handle situations like that?
Well, bringing in larger corporations, I refer to them as Russell 1000 and Fortune 100 companies. These are companies with the asset base of $1 trillion or more. They hire more, thousands of employees. 7,500 is pretty much helpful. Creating that commercial tax base to 70%, where it is now is at 30, and the residential is at 70. So to give taxpayers, like residential payers, individuals who pay taxes at the residential level, a break, we flip that.
Okay.
and allowing that commercial tax base to increase.
But logistically, I mean, you've been a resident in Prince George's County. Have you personally had issues with having your streets plowed during snowstorms?
I agree with you.
Okay.
You know, there are issues.
Logistically, what would you do? Just talking to a voter right now saying, hey, I know you couldn't get out of your road for 2 weeks, a week last time. How would you fix that?
Well, and that's a great question. Hire from within, right, of first refusal, so that the residents within the county, who are looking for employment or they already have their businesses, to put them on the contracts as opposed to hiring from the outside.
Okay.
We want to hire from the inside and then keep that employment. And those dollars will also help as far as recycling, but also it'll tackle the snow removal, the street issues, and many of the other eyesore issues that we see today.
Okay, this $170 million budget deficit we've touched on just a moment ago, but how are you going to balance that budget? I'm curious in terms of taxes. Are you thinking you're going to have to raise taxes? Where are we with that dance?
Great question. Commercial tax base, number one. We have to get it to 70%. It's not going to happen overnight. That's the reality. Secondly, we need to be able to get to a point where we're innovative and we're creative. The county has to generate revenue, not depend on its sources from the federal government, which we understand the climate with respect to that.
I'm glad you're bringing this up because look, we've heard people say repeatedly, I'm not going to raise your taxes. I'm not going to raise your property taxes. I'm not going to cut anything is something we've heard repeatedly, but I have not had a robust answer for where is the revenue source going to come from then. Do you have any ideas?
Yes, very much.
Give me a couple. Give me something to work with.
Financial health and technology.
Okay.
We want to be able to, again, use Prince Georgians as the income base. There are individuals out there who have their small local mom and pop businesses, and they generated revenue.
What could you do in the first 100 days, though? Which one of those could play ball fairly quickly?
Well, again, commercial tax base, because there are corporations that they're paying a whole lot in leasing in Philadelphia, New York, Brooklyn, New York, all that's being kind of urbanized, going vertical, and they're paying a whole lot based on floor area ratio. So coming here is the bonus. That's number one. Number two is creating more of a local-based economy. So this way here, our residents can get hired and do the best from an economic standpoint.
I wanted to ask you here at the commercial tax base. I thought was interesting that you brought that up because the Department of Permitting, Inspections, and Enforcement, DPI, in Prince George's County, I'm sure you're familiar with it. There's a lot of criticism, let's say, regarding delays, inefficiencies, in the whole business permitting process. What changes could you make to that in order to be more attractive to a commercial tax base?
They're overworked, number one. So from an HRD standpoint, we need to make sure that they have the base that they need to thrive. And morale is down. Yes. I think that they have the tools, but they just need support, and not from a monetary standpoint alone. Secondly, there are other agencies, like Housing and Urban and Economic Development Corp. We need to reorganize to be able to shape that.
By support, when you said they need support, you mean they need more people working? Like, what does that mean? They need more support?
Yeah, they need from a reorganization standpoint, they need to be able to be linked in with another organization. So that's going to stay, and to your point about the $171 million, that will also attribute to lowering that deficit down as well.
We're getting tight on time, but I got to ask you about the Commanders. They're one of Landover's biggest constituents, one of your biggest constituents. DC aggressively moving forward, of course, here. The team likely a foot and a half out the door on their way to DC. Would you make a move to keep them? If they do leave, what would your plan be?
Great question, Simone, and I love that question. I get that a lot. No, I would not.
No, you don't want to keep
the Commanders, and 3 reasons. One is that we have an impact fund. I have not seen that money go towards the communities. Number 2, they make 10% up to 10% of taxes on the income across the board, from sales taxes to tickets to paraphernalia, the whole 9. And that money, where's it going? Number 3 is when they were built, the monies were absorbed by the deficit as opposed to going into the school system. So that's an issue. Real quick, again, we're running out of time. If they're going to leave, who are you going to put there? What are you going to do? It's economic development, real estate. I have a background in real estate development straight out of NYU. So that is a campus that we can create. Now that's a few hundred acres. I mean, if you look at the parking area, it's not utilized, it's underutilized. So number 1 is senior qualitative, economically feasible, smart quality housing for seniors, individuals with disabilities, people who are the working class, working poor, and those with housing insecurities, and a campus where we have other commercial base, going back to connecting the dots with that, so that we can raise the bar in collecting tax revenue at the commercial tax base level, and then minimizing or reducing for individuals who are paying higher residential taxes.
Okay, your stance on this is if they go to DC,
We got a plan.
We got a plan. All right, Mr. Slocum, certainly appreciate your time today and the conversation.
Thank you, Simone. Thank you for having me.
And just a reminder about some important dates here. Early voting started today. It ends on March 3rd. Primary day follows it on March 4th. And for more information on where to vote, we have a voter guide for you on our website, WUSA9.com. And on Friday at 4:30, we're going to be joined by Republican candidate George McDermott. Back after the break.